Repainting dolls the way as shown in this video requires materials that can be harmful and toxic. These materials should only be used by adults and don't belong in the hands of children. Make sure to only use them with care and protect yourself as far as possible. Inform yourself before using them about possible damage that they could cause to your health. Hello and welcome to Silent Creativa. Unsurprisingly, in the last weeks I had quite a lot of time to watch YouTube. So I stumbled upon the video from appleminte, who is an art YouTuber here on YouTube, and I will link her video down below or in the screen anywhere. But she made this challenge where she had a spin wheel app, and just put a lot of art supplies on it and then let the wheel decide with what she will color her drawing or parts of the drawing. And I thought that was quite funny. And so I decided to do this too, but with dolls and with some more wheels. And of course, Applemint wasn't the first one to do this challenge. I saw Nikki Tutorials do something very similar, for example, but she was the one that inspired me to do it too. So I downloaded an app, and I was quite surprised how many apps you can download. I took Spin the Wheel. I just give them a shout out because I used their app. This video isn't sponsored or affiliated or something like that. And I made a bunch of wheels. And I decided to put materials on it that I wouldn't normally use. I had some options like choose yourself or the traditional ones that I used all the time. But I thought it could be funny to use some more unique things. For example, I have on this wheel for nearly every segment that I should look outside, and that would have been very interesting for the repaint portion because, yeah, the only option would have been to use something like, yeah, a wooden stick that I will burn at the end for the makeup and something like that. So maybe I will do something like that on its own because I think it's quite interesting to at least give it a try. But now to this stall. In the end, the results were I had to use Spectra, what was okay. For the hair, I had to choose myself, and I gave it another spin, and then it was ribbon, and I thought let's give it a try with ribbons. For the face-up, I had to use markers and fine liners, and the dress should be in the avant-garde style and be made out of plastic, which was quite interesting, but I will get to this later. And the last part was that I could use some lace to decorate it, but I skipped this. Then I took out the markers and tried some stuff with it. It is quite obvious that markers are not the best material to use on dolls. Because I have to say I was quite surprised how interesting it looked in the end, but if you like to repaint your dolls, it will stain the doll. So maybe if you don't want to keep the doll as it is, don't do it. And I decided not to use MSC this time because, or for the first steps, because It's markers. I thought that will stick. And it is. And it did quite well. It has a very interesting effect because as soon as you layer the markers on the plastic, you get something that looks a little bit like a watercolor effect. Not as opaque as they are on paper, obviously, but quite interesting. For the ice, I used a micron pen, and of course, when I used it on the eyebrows and things like that, it smudged a little bit, and I used that for my advantage to get some more shadows into it. And the whole repaint process, the idea of the makeup was to embrace the avant-garde style and make something I wouldn't do normally. And yeah, I was in a bit of a spooky mood, so I decided to go a little bit extra. And in the end, I do like her. Sort of. After the layers of color were only lifting itself up and smudging around, I thought, okay, let's try it with a layer of MSC. And it was okay, but though the ink is alcohol based, it lifted the MSC too, and there was some mixing of the colors, but it didn't do any harm to use MSC. And I used it to protect the surface in the end. It's, yeah, not as great as if you use watercolor pencils and chalk pastels, obviously, but it worked. It didn't advance it to the next step or made it work incredible great, but it worked. And yeah, as I already mentioned a lot of times, I really liked the effect of the markers. As soon as this was done, I turned to the ribbons, and I'm not sure who it was. I think it could be Akameru Kawaii or Sugar Charm Shop. One of them made a wig out of ribbons and brushed the ribbons out, and I thought that is quite a good idea, and I used that too, but only at the top of the hat and, yeah, at the tips of the ribbons. And then again, I just glued it onto the hat. But for the, yeah, front section of it, I decided to just use the fibers on their own without the ribbon base to get a smoother transition between the face and the hair, because yeah, the ribbon is quite a big space, or takes quite a big space, so this should technically make it look a little bit nicer. And to hide every spots and make it a little bit more transition into each other, I used some markers again and gave it a last spray of MSC. And yeah, while I was working on the ribbons, I thought, try to make lashes with it. And I made white ones, glued them on, and though this was completely going anywhere as usual, I fixed it off camera and as soon as it was dry, I cut the lashes and made the tips a little bit purple and put a little bit of glaze over it to make them a little bit more defined. And that worked quite well. So if you don't have lashes in the color you want, try ribbons. It works. And now we are in the realm of maybe the dumbest thing I ever did in my life. Because I had to make the dress out of plastic. I decided, yeah, plastic melts, so use that for your advantage. And I tried out a lot of stuff with perla beads and, yeah, a ton of different things, but in the end, the prettiest thing was using just plastic bags and iron them onto cellophane, onto this shiny, pretty stuff that has this rainbowy effect, because the plastic bag cracked and yeah, you had like a pattern on it, and that was quite pretty. But the problem is plastic or melting plastic gets out some fumes that are maybe toxic and harmful. So, because I already knew that, I opened every window and wore a face mask and made a break nearly every 10 minutes. But still, I was a little bit dizzy after I finished the dress. So, if you consider doing something like this, consider maybe don't do it. It wasn't the greatest idea. I think if I do this ever again, I will stick to sewing the dress, and if I want to melt parts of it, I really recommend doing this outside. Or, as I already said, don't do it at all. It wasn't very great. It wasn't a good idea. Yes, I have to say, in the end, the dress looks quite cool. But is it really worth risking your health? Was it a dumb idea to do this? Oh, yes, it was. In the end, I was lucky that it didn't harm me anyway. I'm totally fine, but yeah, not the greatest idea. Mainly, I just used the plastic I had prepared by ironing it onto each other and melted it onto the doll with a heat gun. Then I took a cap from a quite well-known brand of shower gel, and no, this isn't sponsoring me too, and thought it would make a great, yeah, kind of sleeve situation. And though I had to melt this even more because it's hard plastic, yeah, there were quite a lot of fumes that were even worse than from the plastic bags. So I just can say, not the greatest idea I ever had. But for the main process, I just slapped on plastic everywhere where I thought it is needed. And I was quite surprised how well the doll handled it, because I thought she will melt too. But she didn't. The only part that in the end melted a little bit was her hand when I did the glove thing situation piece. And that was a bit unfortunate, but yeah, let's just leave it like this. And then I put the hat back on, and yeah, I already thought, maybe they won't fit together with that well. And I tried some stuff to give her anything black or anything from the dress into the hair, and that wasn't very working, or that wasn't working very well. And the only thing that it did was melting the ribbons, which is quite a cool effect in the end. And then I just took a little piece of black plastic and smashed it onto her head. I thought about using some lace, but I decided not to do it because I think she is quite interesting in the end. Yeah, let me know what you think about her, and yeah, maybe tell me how dumb I am because I melted plastic. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this process. Have a nice time, and we will see us next time. Bye.